I'm a wrestling nerd.
Yeah.
And that's what we want in our room, right? We want athletes that come in our room that study the greats, that study film, that come in with creative ideas of how to score points, right? That's really what it is living the complete lifestyle, right? Being creative, trying to
Mm.
find different ways to be offensive, score points. That's
Yeah.
really what the wrestling nerd is. So that's why we got these glasses. We'll have them all over the state tournament. You've seen
Mhm.
a few of our athletes rocking them
Yeah. I've seen that all around
after
with all these
their
regional
regional
titles and
finals.
reposting.
Run it, baby.
Hey guys, I'm Alex with Florida Wrestling Insight, and today we have a very special guest, Conor Beebe from Beebe Trained Wrestling. If you guys don't know who Conor Beebe is, he is one of the most successful wrestlers to come out of Illinois, and then a very successful coach too. It's an honor speaking to you. So going into this weekend, we know
I
you have
appreciate it. I'm
a
doing
good amount of
well.
kids out of
Excited
Beebe
for this
Trained
weekend.
Wrestling representing you at the state tournament. What does that mean to you as a program? And what's your mindset with these kids trying to just go into this tough tournament and these tough matches that they're going to have?
I mean, it means a lot. I mean, we've been building this thing for a while now, sticking with our morals and how we like to do things. I feel like
Mhm.
it's now starting to take hold. Everything, when you start something new, it's always a process. So I really feel as if it's now starting to take hold, and I have never been more excited about the state tournament as I am right now. Our athletes are firing on all cylinders. I feel like their confidence is at an all-time high, and that's something that we preach in our room is a confident wrestler is a dangerous wrestler. So just continuing to plug away on that, and then also trying to get our athletes addicted to competition and competing hard, and not necessarily addicted to the wins or the hatred of losses, right? We really focus on trying to embrace competition, right? The more we're
That's
excited
actually one of
about
the first times I've
competition,
heard an
the
answer
better
like
the
that with that
results are going to be.
mindset. When you talk about looking for competition, are you searching for some of the toughest guys, or is it just I want to get my guys to wrestle as much as possible and get that mat time and experience? What do you mean by that?
I'm more so wanting my athletes to not shy away from the toughest path. I don't want them hoping that someone doesn't make weight, because that's the hardest competition, right? I want them to be able to embrace the hardest path, right, to victory, and whatever path is given. I mean, if I have my mindset on, all right,
Mhm.
I'm ready to go through the hardest path, then whatever path is in front of us is not going to be a surprise. I think a lot of times athletes, they wrestle just to win, right? They worry about wins and losses, or they wrestle not to lose. And what happens is it shuts down their wrestling, and
Mhm.
they're not as offensive as they should be, or they know how to be, like in the practice room. Our whole mindset is embrace
Yeah,
competition, and whatever pass in front of us, let's go attack it head on and score points,
of
right?
course. I mean, obviously, like your club has proved that with some standouts going into the state tournament and Gavin Nolan and Maximus Brady both going for their fourth. What is it like having guys like that in the room and just like getting that experience, getting kids to that Division 1 level and just all your other kids you have going to the collegiate level in general? What is that like?
Well, I mean, they set the precedent in the room, right? Max is a guy that, I mean, I have to drag him out of the wrestling room so I can get home,
Yeah.
right? Because that guy will stay in the wrestling room until I kick him out. Guys like that, guys like a Reed Yakes was the same way, still is to this day. I know he's in the Jesuit room a little bit more than my room is. But those type of athletes are the athletes that you dream about, right? That the athletes that you want in your room. That I with both of those guys and a guy like Gavin, those are the type of guys that I
Mhm.
have to, force breaks upon them, because they're so obsessed with the sport. They're addicted to the sport, and that's kind of what we try to instill in our athletes at a young age. We want to get them to love it, and then the when they're starting to get towards the high school scene, we want to get them addicted to it. Um, and so those athletes, the Gavins, the Isaiahs, the Maxes, the Reeds, all these guys that are ranked top in the Christian Fretwells, all these guys that are ranked top in the state or multiple time state champs or chasing a state title, those guys they're all addicted, right? They're all addicted, and it's not just what we are doing as a coaching staff, it's them, building each other
Having
up.
like all those successful athletes in the room, sometimes when you have so much star power, teams tend to break down. How do you keep them together? How are you able to do that?
I think they keep
Hmm.
themselves together. I mean, these guys, these
Yeah.
kids, if you see them at tournaments, they're all hanging out with each other, right? They love each other, right?
Mm.
I look on social media and outside of the room when it's not even wrestling, they're hanging out with each other. These kids love each other, and we embrace a different mindset, right? I just
Mhm.
mentioned Reed and Christian. Both those guys might see each other in the state finals. That's
Mm.
For me, that's awesome, right? And those guys train with each other, right? They don't
Mm.
shy away from each other just because they know that this might be my competition in the state tournament, right? The reason why we've had the success that we've had is because we have that mindset. We're not scared. We don't have the mindset of, oh, I don't want to wrestle this guy because this guy might figure me out, right? Our whole
Yeah,
goal is if your competition's in the room, I hope he figures you out, because if he figures you out, that forces you to expand your playbook. And I've said this many times, right? So you're telling me that Christian's going to figure out Reed, or Reed's going to figure out Christian, and they're both going to force each other to open up their offensive playbook and learn. You figure out that I'm good with a sweep
of
single. Now I
course.
got to figure out how to attack the other side of the body, right? So they're only going to make each other better, right? The goal for those guys, for guys like those two guys and the Maxes and a few of the other guys in the room, is our goal is to wrestle at the next level, right? To put ourselves in position to where we can use wrestling to further our education
Mm.
and our life. At the end of the day, it's about development, right? How are we going to develop these guys? And if I'm the athlete that's scared to wrestle someone because they're going to figure me out, well, that athlete might be the opposite mindset, right? So one guy is a growth
Mm.
mindset where the other one's not, right? So who's ultimately going to reach their goals? It's the guy that's going to go and challenge themselves every single day and not and worry about development rather than what my opponent's going to do.
What is wrestling nerd? Can you tell the people what wrestling nerd is?
So, wrestling nerd
Mm.
is, I've always referred to myself as a wrestling nerd ever since I've been in the sport, really. So, anytime anybody asks me about
Mm.
technique and things like this, I always am like, I'm such a wrestling nerd. Here's what I would do here. And throughout the
Yeah.
years, whenever I throw that out, like a bunch of parents have been like, you should use this. I'm like, I don't know, it's kind of corny. But and then Jordan actually um, said the same thing, and I've been told this like 10 different times from parents and other coaches, and
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna embrace it. We're gonna embrace because that's what I call myself. I'm a wrestling nerd,
Yeah.
and that's what we want in our room, right? We want athletes that come in our room that study the greats, that study film, that come in with creative ideas of how to score points, right? That's really what it is living the complete lifestyle, right? Being creative, trying
Mm.
to find different ways to be offensive, score points. That's really what the wrestling nerd is. So that's why we got these glasses. We'll have them all over the state tournament. You've seen
Mm.
a few of our athletes rocking them
Yeah. I've seen that all around
after
with all
their
these
their
regional
regional
titles and
finals
reposts and
and
stuff.
and
Like
things
it's
like that
I
after
thought
big
I thought it was
wins.
like their actual glasses, but it's hilarious. That's hilarious.
No, it's awesome. Well, the other thing too is that
Yeah.
that's missing in our sport is people getting excited about victories, right? And being able to, I think we're the only
Mm.
sport that doesn't, where it's like a taboo for some reason to celebrate after a big victory. And I don't understand it, right? I understand the respect value of it, but part of the reason why we don't draw as many
Mm.
athletes into our sport is because I think we lose the fun factor of it, right? And I think it's very important to bring. There's a difference between celebrating and being cocky, right? There's definitely times where athletes have taken it too far, but this is just a way where if you did
Yeah.
something fun. I mean, you don't ever see Max celebrate, right? That guy will get his hand raised and walk off the mat.
Yeah.
The most that I can get him to do is maybe throw on the wrestling nerd glasses after winning a
Yeah.
four state title. You know what I mean? So this will be a good way to get him out of his box a little bit. But yeah, I think it's just fun and people are starting to embrace it, which I think is hilarious. I think it's awesome because when I presented it to my athletes, I was actually nervous. I was like, "Oh man, they're going to think this is super corny and nobody's going to
Yeah.
do it." And then as soon as I did it, as soon as I brought it to them, like they're embracing it. Like I'm getting messages from parents saying, "Oh my God, so and so is so mad because he forgot wrestling nerd glasses
Yeah.
and he's going to the state tournament without wrestling." I'm like, relax. I have freaking bags of them ready to
You
go.
talked about celebrating and keeping the fun. I've seen like some of your work on your page where you're dressed up in costumes while you're doing a wrestling nerd episode. Is that on purpose to keep the fun of that in wrestling and all that and just keep them engaged?
Well, that's actually our assistant coach was the one that does it. Our assistant coach Nick Carbone is the one that was dressing up and stuff. But yeah, that's part of it. I
Mhm.
mean, we're gonna start getting creative with it. I think that that's what's missing in wrestling. All right. If you ask any wrestler deep down inside, when you're having fun is when you're wrestling the best. Right. When you're stressed, and you let the competition get bigger than it actually is, you start shutting down your wrestling. Right. It's not as fun. The key to getting into a flow state is enjoying what you do, right? If you think about any time you've ever been in the flow state, right, where everything seems to be working, I feel like a superhero almost, right? Every shot is crisp, my footwork feels clean.
Of course not.
Every time you're in that, nobody's ever said, I'm not having a good time in a flow state. You know what I mean? It's wrestling's supposed to be fun. And you want to get into that flow state if you want to compete, at your all-time best, get in that flow state, have fun, right? Most people say that I compete the
Mhm.
best in practice. Well, why is that? Because you're having a lot more fun in practice and there's a lot less pressure, right? So
Of course.
you're able to open up a lot more because you're not fearing the consequences as much. Okay, well, if that's when I'm performing the best, how do I duplicate that in competition? Well, have fun, don't have fear. Have fun,
Yeah.
live to compete, not live to protect something. I'm not trying not to lose. So I think going back to the wrestling nerd and the glasses and things like that, I think it gives our athletes and every athlete, right? If
Yeah.
anybody who wants to embrace it,
Of
it
course.
gives you an
So, where
opportunity
at
to
the
be a
state
little bit
tournament will
goofy
you be on the
and
floor
actually
passing out these
have
glasses?
fun
Can
with the
can people
sport.
find you somewhere? Will you be walking around? What's gonna be the jig about it? Mhm.
Yeah, I usually don't go on the floor during the state tournament. Usually up in the stands watching, and that's one thing that I try to do is I don't like being
Mhm.
in our athletes' corners because I don't want to take away from their programs and their coaches and what they do and the athletes' success. So usually I'm in the corner. Sometimes
Yeah.
you'll spot me yelling one or two things, but usually
Mhm.
I'm pretty quiet. I'm pretty quiet unless I know the coaching staff and we have a good relationship. But I'll probably have our wrestling nerd glasses on tables throughout the tournament, along with some camp
Awesome. Awesome.
flyers
I'll make
and
sure to
and
grab
things like
some.
that we have going on in the off
Yep, I
season.
will.
So
I'll make sure to
they'll be
pass them
around.
around. Well, guys, this is Mr. Conor
Absolutely,
Beebe
sport them.
and Wrestling Nerd. If you're at the state tournament, please support Mr. Beebe. Go grab some glasses. Be a wrestling nerd. Embrace the sport. Have fun. Do everything that Mr. Beebe said about wrestling, and just be in your flow state. And make sure to celebrate a little. Have some fun. I'm Alex with Florida Wrestling Insight. Mr. Beebe, I appreciate you coming on and talking to me and giving me your time. And have a great night, guys. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.